Yeah, I mean, I don't drink them for the caffeine. I drink them for the taste. Like, I don't... Same thing for coffee.
Do you have like a super high caffeine tolerance?
I mean, I don't want to say yes, because I feel like that's like the typical...
But the other day I took 700 milligrams of caffeine and my resting heart rate was 53.
No,
I don't know.
I feel like that's like the typical, like... I guess Chad is... I don't know how to use that lingo. Like, I don't know if it's like a Chad thing or a douche thing to say, like, yeah, I could drink 50 espressos to the face and not feel it. Like, welcome back to RidgeSide K9 EC Radio. Mike and I just sitting here talking shit for a while. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about tools in a broad spectrum of ways, I guess. You know, tools that we see clients and owners use on the daily and how they can or cannot help a certain situation. And then the tools that we use in training, you know, just like any experienced craftsman, they have what they started on, and they, you know, take some stuff out of their toolbox, add some new stuff in. So I'm sure we both have a lot of different things that we've used for different purposes. You know, different techniques behind certain things. You know, can you use a screwdriver as a hammer? Absolutely. Is it the most effective? No.
But if I'm too lazy to go grab a hammer out of the garage when I have a screwdriver in my hand, like when I hung these posters behind us.
Yeah, you just better be skilled when you're doing it, because if you do it wrong, you're stubbing your thumb or something.
Good point is those are large, so you can make some mistakes and cover it up easily.
Put the hole like 2 inches below where you really can't have it higher than. Hit the hole and then like fucking go over it.
Yeah.
Just keep raising the picture up and up.
I've definitely used a screwdriver as a drill when I don't have a drill. You just punch holes through drywall.
Yeah.
Way easier. Anyways, way off topic.
Yeah. Tools.
Let me caveat this part. There is no magic tool.
Correct.
Right? There's no, and a lot of them are marketed as gimmicky, and like even you hear a lot of trainers like, oh, you can put a prong collar on a dog and have it taught, and like leash pulling will be gone instantly.
You won't hear our trainers say that.
No, they'll get smacked if they do. But there is no magic tool. There's no gimmicky thing that you can just put on a dog and it magically understands exactly what it is and its intent behind it. Mm-hmm. It's all about the education process. Oh, God. It's all about the education process that you put into it for the dog to understand it. And then you can just basically streamline that tool to make everything more efficient for you and the dog.
Right, absolutely. And like I was actually in Tractor Supply earlier today, looking at all their leashes or collars or whatever. I was gonna make a reel or something about it, but I was like, you know what? I don't have time for that. I have dogs to train. But anyway, no, absolutely. Especially like today, we had a drop off of a Malinois mixed dog. They came in on I think it was a prong. It was like one of the hideaway prongs where it looked like a flat collar, but it had the prongs underneath it.
Those are actually kind of cool.
Yeah, it's definitely cool for like I don't know. I train a lot, and I have never had personal experience where someone scoffs at me while I'm walking through like a store.
Yeah,
and they go, "Oh, what is that on their neck?" Like I've heard it in distances. Like I've seen like Ashley or Justine, like we were like in Lowe's doing like a big training session.
Yeah,
and I've seen them walk a dog, like whatever dog they had, and they would walk by somebody, and like me then walking by, I'd hear them whisper like, that dog had a transponder on its neck or
GPS tracker.
Yeah, like that dog had something on its neck, and like, but I've never been approached like some people have, like, you have a prong on your dog. That's terrible. Like, I'm sure people do it, but
I'm sure
not in our area that I haven't had that exposure to.
There are far less Karens in the North Carolina region than there are nationally.
No,
so.
I bet. But yeah, so like it came in on that prong, and I didn't know that when I saw them pull up, but like for the potty break, the dog was dragging them, and the dog's jumping on them constantly. And even though it has a potentially good tool on it, like it wasn't a brand I recommend or anything like that, but it had a potentially usable tool. You know, it doesn't matter if you get your hammer from Harbor Freight or Home Depot or it's a Snap-on hammer, like
as long as it's Ryobi.
Yeah, or Ryobi. You know, like a hammer is still a hammer. Like it can still be used for a certain task. You know, it might fall apart eventually, but it can still be used to put one nail in the wall, right?
Yeah.
So like for a prong collar, no matter the brand, if it's, fit well enough, it can still make a correction, or it can still do what it's designed to do. But like you said, it's not going to do it magically. So like them.
So let's
walking,
break that down for people who may not understand exactly what a prong collar is, and break it down for them and kind of explain what it is.
Medieval death machine.
Yeah, I wish
they looked better.
Yeah, I honestly think that's 99% of the problem with them is just the aesthetics of it, which is why I kind of like the concealed one, because they do look better.
Mm-hmm.
What I don't like about the concealed one is I think there's a company now that's making like a martingale style one of those,
mm-hmm.
where it's like the ones that I've seen have just been a flat collar with prongs sewn into the bottom of it.
Yeah, basically.
So you kind of lose what the prong collar was designed for.
Yeah, like you lose a lot of the like snappy smoothness. Even the prong collars that have it's a solid prong collar, but instead of a chain, it's that martingale strap. So it has that like 3/4 inch nylon strap.
Yep.
If you pop that with the leash, that fabric and that resistance takes away so much energy that you need. And not like you're like ripping the leash, but like just a simple wrist flick. That nylon strap takes away so much of that kinetic energy, I guess you could say, from the correction, to where it's basically pointless at that point. Like the chain part of that system, it actuates it with the speed and not intensity, because it's not a intense. It's not purposely made to be an intense correction. It's just made to be a snappy, quick, pressure on, pressure off, but like within the blink of an eye kind of deal.
The thing that I kind of really like about prong collars is they're kind of like power steering in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I like old cars, but if I have any old car and like I'm really interested in getting like a resto mod built, besides the topic, but I would never buy an old 60s muscle car and not have power steering in it. Now that I have power steering in it. But the thing that I like about the prong collar is it makes that communication so effective, right? The benefit to the dog overall is the way they were engineered is it disperses the energy from, just the front 2 inches of the dog's neck. When it's pulling in a flat collar, it disperses that energy 360 degrees around the dog's neck. So it ends up being a much safer tool for it. But the key to that is you have to teach the dog exactly how to turn off the pressure. Explain to the dog in their terms how this thing works and how to avoid the slight discomfort of the pinching when it, restricts. And that's where training comes in.
Yeah. And like even in similar collars, like, so comparing a prong collar, how it applies pressure all the way around, that's the same thing that like the old like choke chains, or what we use kind of today, more of the modern version, is a slip leash, where it's just that tubular nylon. Some people call them like a dominant dog collar. Some people call them slip leashers or slip collars. And it applies that pressure evenly all the way around. And like you said, the most important part is teaching a dog pressure off. Like, teaching the dog how to be comfortable. And when you put things on like harnesses or flat collars, which a flat collar is pretty simple in its name, but like for those that don't know, just like your ID tag kind of a collar, or anything even thicker, and especially when it's thicker, we would call that an agitation collar, or a harness in general. If it's putting pressure on the chest plate of the dog, that back pressure causes agitation, makes them want to pull harder, and like we can get into that side of the tools in a bit, but basically what I'm saying is like teaching the dog that the pressure has to go off. And
so how do you do that?
You just turn off the pressure.
Flip the switch.
Yeah. So like right now we got that drop off today, and I had the owner put the slip lead on it, take off their prong collar, take that home with them. And while I have that dog on leash with me, it's anxious and kind of jumping at the mom, jumping at the dad, wanting to jump on me. Ashley's here talking to the owners. We're just kind of like going through like, any more questions? Like how much does he eat? Where's his food, et cetera, et cetera. And every single time he's jumping towards the owner or jumping towards Ashley, jumping towards me, I'm using that leash. Like, I want the leash loose. Like, my arms are down at my side from the rip. Like, I'm giving the dog the benefit of the doubt. If it's next to me, that leash is loose. The moment it goes in any direction, once it hits like a 95% like tensile or like tension, like if the leash was 100% loose, right? And it's almost perfectly tight, like it's about to put tension on me, I'm applying tension to it. I'm applying that pressure to it before it applies the pressure to me. It's jumping. It feels uncomfortable. Like that leash is applying pressure all the way around the neck. It's uncomfortable for the dog. They're still doing what they want to do, and like getting into it in a little bit, like the dog's going to value whatever it wants, or whatever it cares about. But like every time he jumped at the owner, pressure came on. With the leash being directional, I was able to bring the dog back to me. And then as soon as the dog got back to me, paws on the ground, I'm relaxing the leash. So then the dog's comfortable again. While it's mentally anxious, that's the most important thing. Fighting through separation anxiety kind of thing is you have to get the dog physically comfortable before they could be mentally comfortable. You know, same thing for a person. If you were having a panic attack, you know, I can't just like talk you out of it. I can just say, oh man, like, you know, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. Like if you're like freaking out and pacing, like I might grab you, like shake you, like smack you, like, dude, like snap, like snap out of it. Like, you know, like if we're like panic attack, anxiety attack, like if we're taking fire, like super
stressful,
super red zone, you know, like if you're just like, oh man, I've had a bad day today. Like you're not really having that big of a stressful problem. But like when the dog is seeing black, jumping all over the place, like it is in that situation where like it's not mentally stable. So before we can get it mentally stable, because it doesn't speak English, it doesn't speak Dutch or German or whatever the dog is, it doesn't speak that language. So I can't talk to the dog. Like I can't soothe the dog, because if I do talk to them, it's just engagement, which makes it worse. So I can't say like, oh, it's okay, honey, it's okay, don't do that, which like the owners are doing, like while all this is going on typically. But so I'm making the dog physically comfortable first, so then it can mentally stop panting, stop like barking, or stop wanting to go forward, you know, stop having any kind of outward display of
hop off the metaphoric ledge.
Yeah, exactly. So every time it would go in a direction, leash pressure's on, I'm bringing it back to me where I can show it how to be comfortable. And then, you know, typically every handoff, mid-conversation, the dog is sitting at my side. Like I didn't tell it to sit. And the dog's like maybe still kind of physically moving around, but it's not forwardly lunging and jumping and doing whatever. And a couple times he would like offer a different behavior. He would like try jumping on me for an alternate behavior. Same thing, pressure off or pressure on the dog, getting it off of me, releasing pressure, showing you like, if you jump on me, you're going to be uncomfortable. Like if I didn't invite you, right? Because like we can go down further rabbit holes of like when certain behaviors are allowed and when they're not. But like in that moment, I didn't invite you on me. I didn't like sign for you to jump on me. So
I think the key here too, like a lot of times I see with leashes, even though they are directional, trainers can be impatient and use it as like physical force to remove the dog from you. So it's important that when you're teaching the dog, whether it's a dominant collar, slip leash, prong collar, whatever, you apply pressure, the least amount of pressure to change the dog's behavior, but you're just annoying the dog, so to speak, but you're also allowing the dog to make a decision at that point to remove themselves from whatever we're working on. So if a dog's jumping on me, I'm just going to, you know, annoy the dog with the prong collar until it chooses to jump off of me. And then once it does, all the pressure goes away or the annoyance goes away. So that's a very crystal clear learning point for the dog that, like, number one, they're in control of how to turn pressure off. But they made the decision, so they're able to learn from that experience rather than jumping on me and then I just chuck them off of me. They're like, holy shit, I don't know what happened there.
Right, and that's kind of like we talked on recall a week or so ago. Like when I'm recalling my dog, I'm not like reeling them in all the way back to me under pressure the whole way. Because like that,
I just got to butt in and say this Black Rifle coffee is delicious.
We got to get good at these ad sponsorship.
Yeah, we're probably going to get sued, more likely, but whatever, we'll figure it out.
But yeah, like it's like with recall, I'm going to apply a little bit of annoying pressure. The dog has to realize how to turn it off. I'm not just like reeling them in all the way to me. Same thing for like you said, if I want to teach my dog to get off the couch or get off of me, I can't just yank them to the ground or yank them off of me. It's going to be a little bit of annoying pressure. And then you get off the ground or you get onto the ground yourself. But
actually, we'll touch on this because I was working. So we have that 2.6 pound Pomeranian in training right now, and trying to teach a dog that to understand a leash. It's never been on a leash before, so we had to work through that. But you want to talk about having to like fine tune and feather pressure on a leash, like that was.
It's a lot of throttling. Like,
yeah,
I always equate it to either like riding a motorcycle or driving a manual car. Like, you have to throttle all your controls very delicately to get what you want out of it. Because if you just like grind them until you find them, like you're just banging gears. Like, it's not gonna the machine isn't gonna efficiently operate. Same thing with a leash. If you're just being reckless with it, you and your dog aren't going to have efficient communication in that aspect.
And I found myself, because it is so light, like it takes zero effort to move that, especially on like a hardwood floor. So like it was literally like just putting the line tight and then like rotating my hand slightly, and then just watching the dog like feel that. You could see it kind of sit back into the line and try and figure it out. And it started with just like one paw, two paws, and then it was a long process, but it was pretty cool because that dog's, even though it's small, like spunky as shit, it's highly intelligent.
That thing is cool.
Yeah. It's like a dust bunny grew legs and is now running around.
So like with the slip lead, like I'm doing this, for the first day or so. Like I took it, like it was a super anxious ordeal. Like the dog was super anxious. It was a super stressful ordeal switching over from the owners to me. And then like immediately outside for a potty break. Cause like I've learned too many times when dogs get stressed in those situations, like they're either going to crap themselves, in a room or in a store, or they're going to do it in a kennel. So like taking the dog for a potty break so it can decompress. Especially, I hate soaking a dog in the area of the stressful situation, right? So like if we do a turnover or if we do a handoff, like I want to get that dog out of that area as fast as possible. So they're not just like constantly sitting, looking at the door, like, where'd mom and dad go? Where'd mom and dad go? Where'd mom and dad go? So we get them out into the yard or into wherever, potty break, and start building our relationship immediately from the rip is, you want to go sniff that way, leash pressure back towards me. You want to go drag me that way. And like for this dog, how we were talking about power steering versus not, I had him on a slip lead because some dogs will work very well, throw a prong collar on, and they can move and go. But a lot of the situations for the volume of dogs we get, I just don't know. Or not that I've been burned too many times, but like I feel more comfortable in my training habits. Every dog gets a slip for the first day, and then from there I can evaluate how they understand pressure, how they work through pressure. So like for him, like it's either going to be for the next 3 days, I'm going to have to like bear down, be ready, because like he is dragging. Like me on this slip lead, he's like dragging all four claws in. Like as soon as pressure comes on, he'll just go up on his hind legs and just like
keep going,
like keep running like a marathon runner, just going on his back two legs. I'm like, all right, like at that point, it's more detrimental for you to be on the slip lead because it doesn't have that mechanical advantage, that power steering like a prong collar does.
And he's kind of already, this particular dog has been counter conditioned to pressure.
Right. Like, so he's been pulling on a prong. So he just now needs to understand how it's actually applied. So that is a great point. Based on what tools the owner brings their dog in on will help me assess like, okay, if your owner halfway used a prong right, then I can bump you to a prong a little bit quicker.
That's one of the scariest statements that we hear in sales calls. Pretty much weekly, we'll get somebody.
My dog's already on an e-collar. My dog's already on a prong.
Yeah, and I'm like, a lot of people have done it right. There's a lot of great information out there, but the amount of dogs that we've trained where I have to spend months counter conditioning an electronic collar because like it seems like a simple concept. You buy this thing, it comes in a box, you put it on the dog, and you just start hammering the dog, right? Way more in depth and more complex than that when you do it the proper way. But trying to unscrew that habit can be very, very difficult.
Yeah. And not only for the dog themselves, but like I always ask whenever I bring out the e-collar, I always ask like, have you guys ever used an e-collar or remote collar before? Whether it's a 6-year dog, I could assume that question's more directed at this dog in particular, or if it's like a 6-month-old puppy or a 9-month-old puppy, I'll say, have you guys ever used an e-collar before on any of your past dogs? And sometimes they'll say yes, sometimes they'll say no. Most of the time when they say no, I'm like, okay, great. That means I don't have to unteach you anything. Like,
Yeah.
like if you've never used it before, you've never done anything wrong with it. So I have a clean slate. Kind of like teaching,
People how to shoot. That's one of my favorite things.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
We, because of my career paths, right? Like being in law enforcement and then transitioning over to the government side, like people were in the beginning, like firearms quals before I proved myself. Like people were like, "Oh, where'd you come from?" And I'm like, "Oh, I was a cop." And they're like, "Oh, shit." Because so many cops have so many bad habits when it comes to firearms training because nobody invests time and effort and money into it. But then I was able to work through it and I didn't have to unlearn any like severe bad habits.
Right. Yeah. And like so like for me, that's always a big thing is like for the e-collar, I'd rather you have never used it. And again, some people will use it, fine, or they have like, even if they've had it, it's always like, oh, I only used it for vibrate or I only used it for tone. And I'm like, cool. Now I just need to rewire you to understand that like stim isn't something to fear. Like, like you don't need to fear the rest of the e-collar that we're going to go over and use. But it's those like, random 1 in 1,000 people that are like, yeah, like I've used it and I would just crank it up to max and I would hit it and they would stop.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, well, we're not doing that today. Like we're not doing that. Like it's 2020, whatever. It's not the 80s.
It's
we're not
2024, Greg.
Yeah. Well,
it's been that way for a couple months.
I'm just saying, like, if someone listens to this in 6
it's probably not going to take this long for that episode to drop. We don't have that big of a catalog on hold.
Yeah. But anyway, with the power steering side of it, like back to the prong is like, it definitely makes it a lot easier. And I understand where people get the whole like self corrections from. Cause like as a trainer, putting a prong on a dog, I can't like, and like, it's very subtle changes. Like I can put my hand at my side holding a leash on a prong. And when that dog pulls forward or goes to the side or jumps, very like micro movements in my hand.
It's all in the wrist.
Yeah.
To quote Happy Gilmore, it's not the old school like about turn and just like hammer.
Right.
Right. It's literally you can do it just rotating your wrist.
Yeah. I'll always say like, either like whenever we're drilling, like for the military stuff, like your arm swing is like 3 inches to the front. 6
You're in
inches
the
to
Air
rear.
Force, right?
Stop. We didn't eat crayons over there. No, so like, 3 inches to the front, 6 inches to the rear, or maybe that's backwards. I don't know. Anyway, just like you're just either doing it like in your natural arm swing, you can make your correction the exact same way. Just change the pace up or change the cadence of your arm swing to match or to go opposite of what the dog's doing. And like you can make your correction as simple as that. Or it is just a wrist flick. Like you're not like winding up and schwacking back. Like that's unnecessary, for like a lot of the stuff that the pets are doing wrong. Like it's very easy to stop jumping with very small movements. And like I try to show my owners that a lot of times at handoff or switch over is like, I'm talking to you face to face. Like you came in and you were struggling with like your bag and your purse and your dog is on your back. And like, you're doing this for 5 minutes. And then I say like, here's the leash, put it on him, give him to me. And then I'll stand there for 20 minutes talking to him, arms at my side, calm. I'm looking at you in the eye the whole time. And I'm just like orchestrating your dog below the hips, basically. And just to kind of show him like, one to show him like, be relaxed, be safe, be confident in who you chose.
Huge point.
Yeah. Like, like I want you to understand, like you're leaving your dog with us for 3 weeks. I want you to turn around, walk to the parking lot and say like, we made the right choice versus like, if the dog's jumping on me and I'm like high stringing it and like, I'm struggling with it. Like, and then they turn around and they go,
yeah.
Like I want the client to feel comfortable with choosing RidgeSide, with choosing us. But it just goes a long way to like use that tool in the proper capacity, I guess.
It's kind of like the difference of, and like to equate it with guns, like you have your DDMs who can put like a precision shot at a mile now or a Hellfire missile. Like both are effective, but one is just precise and it requires way less effort and it's just effective to the dog. But going back to like the medieval look that they have. Like, I hate it. I really wish they look differently with as valuable as a tool they are. The one, I've had a couple of people like just argue with me based on looks, right? And they're like, I don't want that torture device on my dog. And then the one way that I kind of debate that is, whether that person's coming from like the purely positive community that believe you can only train dogs with hugs and kisses and treats, is I just asked them simply, and I stole this from Aaron, shout out to the RidgeSide founder, but
Turbo.
yeah, I asked, the simple question, how does a dog correct a dog? And nobody will answer that, right? A couple people be like, oh, they bite each other. I'm like, perfect. What do they have in their mouth? And they're like, teeth. And I'm like, yeah. So it's kind of designed that way. And I don't know, it just looks like crap, but it's hands down for leash manners specifically. Like, prong collar is my favorite tool of all time.
And like with that, like I'll always like go further, like a dog's correction when they bite on the neck, like even for play, like dogs bite for play as well. And I'll always say, like, it's never to maim or injure or puncture. Like, I can apply pressure without piercing your skin, and that's what a prong collar safely does as well. Typically, I guess I used to do this for like my first 2 years. Whenever I would bring the because like as a new trainer and like as a dog trainer, your first year, your first two, like you are still very new. No matter how many dogs you train a month, you are still a very new dog trainer. But like, so I was always like nervous, like bringing the prong collar out. Like, all right, here's another graduation. I gotta convince the owners that like a prong collar is a good tool.
Yeah.
Whereas like now, like much more mature in training, like I'm the experienced one. I know what I'm talking about. I'm telling you what is the best thing. Like, I don't need to sell you on it. You can not use it or whatever. But I'm giving you everything that you need to know.
Sure.
But like in the very beginning, I would try to sell it like, all right, I gotta make sure that like they understand the prong collar is great. And I would pull out a prong collar and I would pull out a flat collar, and I would say like, like if their dog came in on a flat collar, right, which most of them do or whatever, or they would come in on a harness because they were on a flat collar and then they moved to a harness because their dog was choking. And I'll pull out a flat collar, pull out a prong collar, and I would say, like, which one looks more abusive? And, like, they point to the prong collar. Or I would, like, forefront it. Like, I know this one looks more abusive, but this is the abusive tool. And they would always, like, be confused, like, an ID tag collar as an abusive tool. And I would break it down, the definition of animal abuse is doing something to a dog for no purpose. Like doing something aversive to a dog with no purpose or no intent to it, right? Like just kicking a dog, like that is an aversive thing, or pushing a dog or punching a dog. Like that is an aversive thing that has no purpose to it, right? But I can wrestle with my dog. Like if me and my dog are playing and I'm like pushing her and pushing her and pushing her and like she's jumping on me, like I'm doing the same thing, but it has a purpose to it. It's fun. It's not like malicious.
Yeah, I'll slap the shit out of Thor.
Yeah.
I mean, like I have pants on today, but if you look, like I have 2 gashes across my quad right now from a good old roughhouse session where I stepped it up and he reminded me that he will win every single time.
And like, whereas just walking past the dog and like slapping him, like that's abuse. Like that is animal abuse. So for a flat collar, I would show them like your dog on a prong collar. They are sitting next to me. The tool is on them. Loose leash, they're feeling no pressure. That is the definition of not abusive, essentially, right? Whereas a flat collar on a dog attached to a leash, me standing here and they are at the end of it dragging or clawing the ground, choking and gasping. I'm like, this tool is creating pressure on the trachea, causing the dog to choke for no purpose. Like no purpose whatsoever. They could be on a slip lead, they could be on a prong collar and not be choking. But the flat collar is causing them to choke for no purpose whatsoever. That is the definition of animal abuse. Yeah. So like and not to be like, like not to like say you're abusing your dog, but like if you are walking down the street and your dog is choking and gasping for air on your lovely neighborhood walk, the question is, are you abusing your dog?
It's a fair question.
And like I'm not going to answer. Like I'm not going to say yes. But like, your dog's choking for no reason, so just kind of think about that.
Good point.
Yeah, go get some training.
Yeah, I think the key to everything, like the you just have to teach the dog.
Yeah.
Is there any tools for you that are 100% off limits? Like you'll just never have it in your toolbox?
So because of how effective slip leads are, because of how effective prong collars are, because of how effective e-collars are, those are the three main ones that I have in my toolbox. Like I'm not teaching anything pet related on a harness. Harnesses are great for tracking, bite work, detection work, because it applies that back pressure. It allows the dog to react in a way you want in those applications. For pet training.
And it's not really corrective, right? That's,
right.
To me, that's the biggest reason that I use harnesses is I'm not going to accidentally correct the dog at it for that application in the bite world or whatever. Like if I'm cueing a dog to go engage on a human and it's excited to do it and it is on a prong collar, it jumps to the end of the line, which is something that I want it to do. I want it to have that forward aggression and it gets, corrected on the prong collar. I'm sending conflicting messages. But on a harness, like I can just fish that dog out and there's zero pressure on the dog whatsoever.
So in a great aspect, Ashley and all of her dog friends, they go hiking in the game lands.
The dog moms of North Carolina.
All the dog girls. They go hiking, and one of the dogs who's not that she's not reliable off leash, but the mom just doesn't like let her go completely off leash. She's ran away a couple times and like has like her own personal trauma with that, which is totally fine. But she walks her on a prong. So whenever they would go off leash, go walking through the game lands, she would clip that dog's prong into the long line. And that dog is walking around, and it's 3 girls and 7 dogs. Occasionally that dog's long line would get stepped on. The dog would get corrected. And then it's like, shit,
what do I do?
Yeah, like I don't want to be out here. And then now that dog, after, months and months of doing it, would just auto heal essentially. Like we're all out in the game lands having a blast. All the dogs are running around. And this one dog in particular is just auto healing, not having fun because like it kept getting corrected. So we said, hey, like if she's doing that long line stuff, put her on a flat collar. Like you're not healing her. Like you don't need to correct her essentially. Cause like she has an e-collar
sage advice, sir. Sage advice.
Yeah. So like, she has an e-collar if she needs to correct her for like drinking dirty water.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the long line, if she's wearing a flat collar or even better, a harness.
Bro, you just brought up water. And I just learned this.
What? Did
you know this county is ranked number 8 in the United States for worst tap water?
Oh my God.
I just saw this. It blew my mind. But like, obviously Flint, Michigan's way up there with their whole crisis. But like,
well, exactly.
Don't drink tap water around here.
Especially for all these water treatment ponds that they're walking around at.
Yeah. Anyways, back to your point.
No, yeah. So like we told her like, hey, like switch to a flat collar for the long line. That way, if your dog's leash gets stepped on, it's not a corrective, pressure. If anything, it'll make her want to drive further. Or even better, like I might even recommend her to wear the harness because she has one of the harnesses. So I might tell her to go to that because, like, again, that's the right tool for that application. Yeah. But like I said, in pet training, the harness wouldn't be martingales, which is like a flat collar that has that actuator that cinches down like a prong collar does. Like they're great additional tools. They're much thicker, so like a slip lead is much more effective. Whereas like a prong collar is power steering to a slip lead. A martingale is like like a Flintstone steering system. Like it's way in the dark ages.
With a martingale, like if you only gave me 2 options and I had no other tools available, like you can train the dog with a flat collar, or you can train it with a martingale. 10 out of 10, I choose martingale.
Yeah,
but I've never gone into my toolbox and been like, you know what? I'm gonna solve this problem with a martingale.
Yeah, like I will use a martingale for flat collar purposes, which is just like clipping my safety clip into from the prong collar and leash. Halty genter leaders, the whatever one that goes on the nose.
Yeah, the muzzles.
Yeah, I like again science and double blind testing. Like I don't care. Like you're twerking your dog's neck around a whole bunch.
Yeah,
I've never seen it.
I've seen firsthand, like multiple dogs get jacked by being on halties, not understanding what it is, get overstimulated in a public setting, run to the end of a 6-foot line and just get hammered. Yeah. And then like you just see like that hurt. Like
Yeah.
that wasn't like a correction. That was like, oh, you need to get that dog to the vet because his spine is now twisted.
Yeah, and like again, we get dogs in training that come in on halties. Like
Yeah, whoever invented that and like did the marketing appealing to like the soft side of humanity, brilliant job. Because
I was reading the packages at Tractor Supply today of them. Like they had them there, and it's like, teaches a loose leash, teaches this, gentle, polite, and I'm like, ugh.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. I'm sure there's some dogs out there that you put this contraption on their face and they're just like, ugh.
Yeah,
I don't want to do anything.
And that's the like people will say like, oh, like my dog walks great on a harness. Like, good, I'm happy for you. You don't deal with thousands of people a year whose dogs drag them down, cuts, breaks, sprained wrists. Like
most of the time that I've heard that argument, and then I actually evaluate the dog and look at the dog, it's a dog that is super nervous by trait. And it's just
it's Velcro anyway.
It's too scared to go out and like investigate anything.
Yeah.
Where the behavioral problems come in is when you have a dog that doesn't give a shit, and it's just like I'm a free dog. I'm gonna go all over the place. Like those are the ones that require some sort of system and tools to train.
Yeah. So like those are some of the top ones that come to my mind. I don't know. You have any others in that category or?
No, I mean we're obviously pretty much on the same page, but.
Yeah.
And the e-collar, we're going to have to do a whole other episode. We've been running our mouths for some time now. But hands down, like, I'll never not train a dog with an e-collar. I mean, with the exception of this Pomeranian thing.
Yeah, age of the size.
It can't fit on the dog because it's 2.6 pounds.
Yeah,
but if they made one small enough that worked, I would 100% use it on it.
Yeah. It's one of those things, too, where, like there's a lot of people say like, oh, like I have a dog and they're great without an e-collar. Like, good.
Cool.
Like whatever floats your boat, whatever problems you have or don't have, like that's great. Like this little dog, like it's not going to get into the trash can. It's not going to dig holes to China. Like it's not going to jump the fence. So like it might have smaller problems that can be mitigated in other ways. Like it's not like a terrible detriment. Like if e-collars were banned, like We'll get into a whole e-collar episode if they're banned and what we would do and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now.
Yeah, there's case studies going on real time over in our European countries because they ban a lot of shit.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll wrap this one up. Where can people find you?
RSK9NC.Greg. And for tools, if you're looking for tools,
high quality
tools. RSK9 training supplies. We actually just sent our first order to Japan today.
No shit.
Yeah, Fukushima, Japan. They got like a Kato board and a We Train Dogs hoodie. And
is that close to Oki? Like,
I feel like Fukushima was the place that got like the nuclear meltdown in 2010. I feel like, but
nobody cares about your feelings.
I don't know. Anyway,
is this I don't know. I feel like nuke in Japan is a touchy subject.
Nuclear, yeah. Fukushima disaster.
Really?
March 11th. Yeah. Because I was in the schoolhouse when this happened.
How did that must just be like organic pickup traffic. Or are you running ads in Fukushima? I wouldn't see that as a target audience at the moment.
No, actually, we don't run a lot of ads. We have so much spread on social media from people recommending and pushing it, and I think we actually just approved our second ambassador. Like we have one awesome dog handler. She's a client from another training company up in Pennsylvania. But she's an ambassador, and like she just spreads the word about good gear, and like she's self-training her dog after doing lessons or whatever. And then we just got a second one from Canada.
I'm gonna have to sign up to be an ambassador.
Yeah, do it.
I mean,
go on the page, drop down tab in our link tree.
You guys will be screwed if I get denied.
You got to be a certain level of an influencer now. I forget what we were saying. Yeah, good quality training gear. RSK9 training supplies.
That's another key point, just to bring up. Like the quality of the tools does matter for sure. So invest in it. Like obviously, quality tools can tend to be more expensive, but like shit's worth it. Like you're going to be using it every day. Like if I'm doing a home repair project and it's not something I typically am going to continue to use all the time, I'll buy a cheap version of it. Like porter cable or whatever that shit is.
Yeah.
Right. But if I'm like a general contractor and I'm going to be hammering this stuff all day long, or if it's something even I frequently use around the house and with a dog, you're going to be using that equipment hopefully every single day. So invest in quality so that it lasts.
Yeah, and like the biggest thing with a lot of the gear that we have is like one of our slogan mottos is like dog gear that trainers love. You know, it's about how it's made, not necessarily that it's more expensive, but like because like you can have, you know, one of the big box stores can sell a leash for the same price as one of our leashes, but the leash was designed, something as simple as a leash was designed differently with certain characteristics, or treat pouches or whatever it is was designed differently with certain things in mind that like are just better and more efficient. That's all it is.
And you guys, like being a small business yourself, and this is a perfect segue to our next topic. So stay tuned when we talk about small business, but supporting each other is huge. Like the TGR stuff that you guys use, like 100% you can find equivalent quality products. You know, and you can get on Alibaba and get that shit sent for like pennies on the dollar. But, you know, part of the American dream is owning a small business, and you got to network amongst each other and support one another, and like the values and the missions they stand for.
We have a bunch of veteran-owned, small business-owned, female entrepreneur, small
using
business
those Air Force connections.
I was not in the Air Force.
I was a Marine.
All right, crayons.
All right. You can find me at Mike_Swarchek. And if you're interested in dog training at all, RidgeSide K9 Eastern Carolina. We'll see you on the next one.
Later.